remaining CXPSers. Lots of familiar faces in the room. For those of you who don't know who I am, as Ryan mentioned, my name is Desi Podkowka. I lead our client success team here at Client Savvy. Today I don't have a heavy presentation for you all. I'm sure at this point in the conference on day 2, our brains are pretty full. So I just wanted to share a story with you of what one of our clients did to increase PM engagement. I think it's a pretty relevant topic that I have heard buzzing around the conference, and I'm sure all of you have as well. And how to make client experience more of a hard skill rather than something that seems more soft and not tied to tangible outcomes. So this firm, this client I'm going to tell you about, is a 60-person engineering firm based out of Rhode Island. And I would say up until about 2 years ago, they hadn't really done a whole lot with client experience or feedback in general. But they found themselves kind of stepping into a post-pandemic economy, like I'm sure all of us were at one point. And they're hearing a collective buzz from their clients, their competitors, prospective talent, that some of the things that were driving their decisions were feedback and client experience and opportunities to provide feedback to employers as well as to their partners for their projects. So what they did, they decided to jump in head first and start by creating a client experience steering committee. So they had a group of leaders internally who were in charge of creating CX out of really nothing. They had some really good ideas and some good resources, and then they eventually started to gather a client perception analysis to get a feel for what their clients thought of them, so they had somewhere to start with. Right out of the gate, they had some quick wins that they were able to kind of capitalize on, and they started off on the right foot. Fast forward about a year, they're doing well, things are moving, and their CX steering committee, their leadership, their executive teams, they see the business impact, they see the big goals, they see how this is going to help to increase share of wallet with some of their clients, how this will help with geographic growth, and ultimately to make them a differentiator in their industry compared to some of their competitors who might not really be doing anything related to CX just yet. However, there was a remaining challenge around PM adoption. Wrong button, sorry. There we go. Okay, here we go. So some of those challenges that they were hearing were around PM adoption. They did not want to take on the task of requesting feedback and responding to feedback because they felt they already knew what their clients were thinking and feeling throughout the project because they're engaged with them. They're talking to them often already. Another thing that they heard all the time was there wasn't enough time. You know, their project managers had so much on their plate, resources were thin as it is, so no one really had enough time to commit to another thing to do. What they needed was a way to be more efficient on working on their projects, to reduce wasted effort. And of course, leadership is like, hello, this is going to help you with all of those things. And then there's also the fear component. Change is a little scary, and it takes time for that to really stick. So a lot of the teams were really fearful of the sort of feedback that could come in and if it was going to be a representation of their performance. More than that, it was considered to be a nice to have rather than a need to have. They thought of client experience as something very similar to customer satisfaction or customer experience. You know, it was more transactional rather than something that was tied to hard outcomes throughout their project. And also, they didn't see the benefit. You know, they wanted to come in and work on their projects. They wanted to accomplish their deadlines and get their deliverables out on time, finish projects on budget, and go home by 5 o'clock to be with their family. So they didn't really see how implementing feedback was going to be a benefit to them individually. So this firm, this executive team, they took all this back, they collected feedback internally from the PMs, and they were able to empathetically create a solution. And I'll tell you, this firm, they organize, they kind of create their structure for their company to look like a stool. There are 3 legs of the stool, and since implementing a steering committee, client experience was one of the legs of this stool, along with business development and operations. Now, historically, everything project management fell under the operations leg of the stool. Client experience was somewhere off to the side, kind of lived with business development and marketing. They decided to take the very easy route of reorganizing their entire organization, which if any of you have gone through a reorg, you know it's no fun, and it's a headache and a half. They took that route and they said, you know what, we see ourselves as a leader in CX for our industry 5, 10, 15 years down the road. We need to make the start now. So they reorganized their company and they put everything project management related. So all deliverables, invoicing, bidding proposals, everything under the client experience leg of their firm. And they even created new KPIs for their project managers, so your bonus metrics are different. They incorporated moments of delight as an indicator of success on a project, and a success as your own career as a manager of that project. And what this did initially was it caused an uproar, to put it nicely. A lot of folks were very confused about how you could take something that is strictly operations and put it under something that's kind of soft and cushy, like client experience. In time, what this did was it tied CX and feedback into those tangible outcomes and those milestones and moments that matter throughout a project. And ultimately, it has improved morale, it has changed their client culture so that everyone holistically shares the same vision of client experience. Project managers, more senior project managers, are kind of looking at their day-to-day responsibilities with a new light. They're excited. I think Mallory mentioned, being excited to hear about the raving fan that you created, and that's absolutely what happened here. They were also, within 90 days of this change, their client feedback had changed, that the clients had felt more engaged, and they were able to exceed their revenue and profit goals for the year within 90 days, which is fantastic, and ultimately changed the whole morale of the company. And one of the executives who kind of started the steering committee early on walked into the break room, and the telltale sign of success was overheard a table of PMs talking about the different feedback that they got from their clients and how they responded, and comparing and sharing their success stories and learning from each other. And it completely changed everything and made CX more of a people rather than a process or an addition to, their endless list of to-dos that they already had. So I think I have a few minutes left for questions. Yeah.
You mentioned moments of delight. Do you know how they captured that, or was there a process to it, or just an idea that they would discuss? How did that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So part of what the steering committee did was they started weekly all-hands meetings where they cover, of course, their safety information, but they also started incorporating their client feedback information and client experience stories, and sharing moments of delight like that was a part of that agenda. So project managers were then responsible for, stepping up and saying, well, this is what happened for me this week or last week on this project. Here's where we're at, and that's kind of how they're tracking it now. It's still early stages for them. But it's through collective meetings and sharing. Good question. Anybody else? If not, I'll turn it over to John.
All right. Thank you, Desi.
You're welcome.